If there was ever a must-win game in the NBA in January, it was that one last night, and I don't have to explain why, you know? And it's a tough must-win situation with emotions. You imagine there's an adrenaline dump and rust from 10 days off, but the Warriors took care of business and got over the hurdle of getting back on the court on such an emotional night. Let's start with Jonathan Kuminga. 11 of 11, 9 rebounds, 25 points, a perfect game off the bench. Now, listen, I know some of you, people kind of hear what they want to hear at times and say, hey, you've been trying to trade Kuminga. I've never been trying to trade Kuminga. All I've been saying is, hey, if we want to get something, we're going to have to give something up. And make no mistake about it, after Steph Curry, who is obviously untouchable, who do you think these other teams are interested in? When Dunleavy gets on the phone and let's talk, what name you think gets brought up first? It's Kuminga, right? And so I was just trying to deal within reality of if we're looking to add a star or a number two option, that's what it would cost. Now, does last night change their thinking process? Never mind mine or yours. Like, what are they thinking after watching such a performance? And so a few months ago, I was getting my daughter a birthday present. Aces at Mercury, WNBA game. She's a basketball player. So I hop on the app that I was using and it says Aces at Mercury right away, right? Location based. I get in there, I buy the tickets, I get hit with the fee that a lot of these apps do. And then it turns out, no, it was listed wrong. It was actually Mercury at Aces. And it wasn't here in Phoenix, it was in Las Vegas. But the app I was using, there's no refunds. I was stuck with the tickets. That's when I made the move to the GameTime app because you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to the next big event you want to go to. And it has an all-in price to show you your totals up front. You don't get hit with surprise fees. And I like the best part about it is the last minute tickets, the flash zone deal. My cousin and we scored big on some UFC tickets. We were floor side, or is that what you say? Floor side? Ringside, I guess is what you would say, right? We got ringside tickets at like 1/4 the price because of those last minute deals. And, it's just, in fact, this weekend, I'm out here in Arizona. It's a college town. So you can get tickets here, GCU, $2 tickets, ASU $2 tickets, and that's not even the last minute deals. But they give you just all sorts of deals. Again, peace of mind. It's simple. They show you the view from your seat. That's another big deal is because you can see the mapping and you're like, oh, that seems like it's good. But no, the actual view is going to let you know the angles you get. I love that about the GameTime app. So whether it's a concert, a sporting event, a comedy show, take the guesswork out of buying your next tickets and use the GameTime app. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code Alchemy to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create the account and use the code ALCHEMY to get $20 off. It's the GameTime app. Last minute deals, lowest prices guaranteed. It's funny, I think sometimes we forget that they're all in the same category: cops, coaches, and refs. Right? We all just complain about them. You never want to say something good about them, right? But we forget that they're humans as well. And so there are human elements built into coaching. And, you know, you may not like somebody until you do. You may like somebody until you don't, right? And you saw Kerr so joyous for Kuminga's performance and the way he was playing last night. And I've been trying to kind of like think of these comps because there's not a lot of guys that play like him right now. And, you had heard the Sean Marion comp from Steve Kerr years ago as a rookie. And I think it was in the sense of how he could be effective without the ball, running the floor, using the athleticism. I think Sean was a much more natural rebounder than Kuminga is, but Kuminga a much more natural scorer and a stronger, a more explosive player. Is there a little element of like Jamal Mashburn? There is, because the way he's scoring in the mid-range, that little bump fade is S tier. It looks like it could become one of those inevitable shots in the league where you're like, oh yeah, when he gets there, it's over for you, right? And he's a great example of basketball functional strength. He was matched up against young Jalen Johnson last night, who they list him at 6'8". He looks bigger than that. He was bigger in frame and size than Kuminga. And if you put them in a weight room together, he might probably outlift him. You know, he's a little older or whatever the case is, but you get him on the court, and Kuminga's dramatically stronger and more powerful. And it's a number of things. It's angles, it's mentality, right? And what Kuminga's starting to do is he's tying his dribble to his footwork. And it's not flashy, but you notice he's doing that under scoop, which is helping him pick up cleaner. But his feet are tied to the handle, and it allows him to be so forceful with that shoulder charge and those bumps because it's connected. And I think the exciting thing about it was the rake and take, the rebounding. He had 9 rebounds last night, and they're letting him come down, make decisions, and attack the basket. And he feels, you talk about inevitable, you know, baby Giannis, in a way. It's like when he gets downhill at you, if he's coming downhill at you in transition, there's not a whole lot you can do with it. And what's dope is the defensive rebounding, it's incentivizing the rebounding. It's like, hey, go get it off the glass. We'll let you bring it down and do what you want. We trust you. And so it works hand in hand together. And then you're also just seeing growth defensively. Now, you know, Atlanta was obviously without Trae Young, and you can tell they don't have a lot of great decision makers on that roster. And so there was some easy transition baskets, but you watched them pick up full court a couple times. And you have to understand what the goal is. And a lot of young players don't defensively. It's not to create a turnover. It's to disrupt the timing and rhythm of the offense. And in the past, I think Kuminga had in his mind, hey, I'm picking you up 90 feet. I'm gonna get a steal. I'm gonna turn you over. And then he'd in turn get over aggressive and pick up a foul. But last night you saw him pick it up and just disrupt the rhythm of the offense. And inevitably it would turn into a turnover or a bad shot. And so there's growth on both ends from JK. I think we're all guilty of these knee-jerk reactions, right? We see this performance and you say, there's no way we could trade him ever. We can't trade him, right? And you know, I feel that way right now too, right? You know, that's what we do. It's funny though, because I think when we look at that draft class and, you know, you can point to, is it Wagner in Orlando, right? Was, Giddy and these guys. And you remember at one point, Kuminga was projected top 3 in that draft class. But then what you heard was he lacks feel. He doesn't have a great feel for the game. And that's what the so-called draft experts were saying, watching his G League tape. But I think in hindsight, when we can truly grade this draft class and figure out where they line up, because Kuminga, I think, is climbing on that, is it wasn't feel. It was just experience, because he has a lot of natural feel. And now that he's gaining experience, you're seeing him put it together with these unique physical traits. Now, it was a very inspired team effort in a very much needed win, right? I will say this, Steph still doesn't look right to me. And I know you can point to the numbers. You can say, Alk, he had 25 and 8, like 5 threes. What are you talking about? But you know I'm an eye test guy. And Clay, who played really well, that's the other thing that I wanted to point out. You see the impact that Draymond has out there, but what I noticed was a very conscious effort from the entire team to communicate early and often in transition. You saw Looney pointing, barking back and forth, because I think that has been one of the biggest issues, is the transition defense and the lack of communication. So you saw a concerted effort from the entire team. They had 10 days off. So you saw Clay. Listen, if Clay could play once a week, you know, he'd average 30, right? It's just when the games get piled up, and he had fresh legs as you expected him to. And that's where it was concerning for Steph. 10 days off, and he didn't look like he had fresh legs. How many layups did he smoke? He took a couple awkward mid-range shots. He still had some mental lapses defensively, not boxing out, trying to shoot the gap. And so it's concerning. It's concerning. And again, I want you guys to hear what I'm saying here, because we use the word cooked, right, a lot. That's the trendy word. I'm not saying Steph's cooked or anything like that, but right now, again, after 10 days off, I expected him and his legs to look fresher, you know, and maybe you could say, hey, Alk, he's wearing the loss of Decky emotionally, and it can sap your energy. Listen, that's fair too. I'm not saying he's cooked, but right now, he doesn't seem to have his legs at this point in the season. And so Kuminga's third-year step is just in time, right? What I will say about this Steph thing is, as he ages and his longevity, I think the concern has to be the Mamba mentality. And what I mean by that is, at a certain point here, does Steph overtrain? You know, you're never going to worry about Steph being out of shape or not, doing his routines. He's a creature of habit. But as he's going to be 36 here in March, at a certain point, you have to dial it back. Are you getting diminishing returns going through all his crazy training and his routines? And then, let's not act like all those hours on the golf course aren't taxing at a certain point, right? It's an accumulation. And so, yeah, if you saw him setting screens in the way Atlanta was trying to, they were showing two off the screens, but setting screens. And if Kuminga can continue to take this step forward, Wiggins, that's the other guy I wanted to talk about. And this really pertains to the entire team. When in a tragedy like this, it can give you perspective. And I just wonder, I know that, maybe some of you aren't comfortable with me speculating like this, but we've been speculating about what's wrong with Andrew Wiggins for almost a year now, right? And some say it's the body, some say it's the mind. It's usually a combination of both, right? But Andrew in particular, did this perhaps put things in perspective for him? Like, hey, I may have some things going on personally, but life is precious. Let me go out there and play basketball because I thought he looked well last night. I'm not looking at his numbers. I'm looking at his effort, and I'm looking at his aggression. And so if Wiggins and Kuminga can do more of the heavy lifting, then you can let Steph kind of, pace himself better, find his legs, and you never know what can happen, right? It's one game at a time right now. They've got the Kings tonight. Is that at home too? You always know those are barn burners, man. So I I don't love. Shout out to my guy. Is it Designers or Us on Twitter? He called it the Dooney lineup, Looney and Dario. I don't know how much longer you want to start that, Steve, especially against Sacramento with all those handoffs and threes. I expect Draymond probably in the starting lineup tonight, but I've expected a lot of different lineups that haven't come to fruition. But yeah, man, it's encouraging. I think right now, one game at a time, and I think it was a big hurdle to get back on the court, and he knew how emotional that night was. But a lot of positives to build with. I will be back tomorrow, and we'll talk about what happens with this Kings game. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.